All right, started. Perfect. I'll go ahead and offer the prayer.
All right.
Our Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for this day in this amazing school and the opportunity we have to not only to learn, but to also become better disciples of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. So grateful for this week of work and all that we've learned, and for the opportunity to learn of past mistakes. And we're so grateful for this class and for us to meet together. And we're so grateful for technology that allows us to do this. Please bless us that we can do well throughout the rest of the semester. That we can have a great discussion, that we can learn from each other as we discuss Lance Armstrong. And we love you a ton, and we say, "Sing my Son, Jesus Christ, Amen."
Amen.
All right. Perfect. Let me pull it up. Cool. So Lance Armstrong, it's funny because I remember, and it's been like 10 years now when kind of like everyone found out about everything. For whatever reason, like I still had this like very cool, like positive impression of him. For whatever reason. And when I read the case study, I was like, oh yeah, I remember there was some issues, and then I like it just when you learn about kind of the whole and the just the mess and just how tangled and insane it was. I was really surprised, but it was just really funny to me that I thought for some reason he was still like this positive, awesome example, and then I was just like, wait, oh right.
Well, you know what's really weird is I don't necessarily. I may be way out in left field on this, but I don't necessarily think that he's not a great athlete because of what happened. I mean, you still have to be a fantastic athlete. It's just that he kind of sunk his own ship.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like it was really cool to learn. I didn't even know about that. What was it? The gosh, I don't remember. His heart and the extra oxygen he would get in his blood because of his blood type, and that definitely like his very strong-willed and very strong person to overcome cancer, both strong physically and mentally. And then just his personality, like he just became so consumed and so just he just got so tangled into what he just started to
just not being happy with enough. It's not enough. Got to keep going.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the first question though. What was his legacy? Let me see. I want to pull up. Actually, I even answered these questions one by one. Might as well pull them up.
I kind of felt like unfortunately his behavior before he came clean was so vitriolic and so nasty and so angry and vehement that I think that's the taste that he's going to leave in everybody's mouth. It's just that he's just kind of a
he wasn't humble at all. Or even at the end, he was so hesitant, and it was so hard for him to admit that he was in fact in the wrong. Still try to justify like, oh, like everyone else did it. Just like putting air in tires, like this is just part of the sport. It's not even cheating. This is just how it is. So crazy. It's so crazy how like you lie enough and it becomes such a huge pattern in your life, whatever it is that you're doing, that if you continue to tell yourself that it's okay and you do it for so long that you actually create this reality, and you're so convinced that you're right and that's okay. It's just crazy how our minds can just warp.
I think it's also interesting how the lengths and the vigor with which he was defending himself. I think that in
Well,
many different scenarios in life, the harder people try to push back against a particular issue, sometimes the more guilty they look, or
yeah,
the less acceptable they seem. I mean, I honestly feel like what he ought to have done is just said, you know, that's up to you guys. Believe what you want. Good luck to you. I'm not gonna entertain your accusations or something like that.
yeah,
I mean,
you're
even whether it's true or not is almost beside the point. It's just that he just seems to have painted this really almost overly emotional picture
mhm.
of the accusations that were being laid against him. That as like a father, you look at that and you're like, something doesn't smell right here. Just based solely on his or his actions and his reactions.
Yeah, I totally agree. You're gonna say something, Cody? Or maybe you
No.
were. Oh,
No.
okay. Yeah, and man, I just it's just so crazy the power that someone has when someone's in a leadership role or in a position where people look up to them, especially with the awesome Live Strong Cancer Foundation, just all these amazing things that um yeah, just so many people, despite like you said that it rose flags even for the way he acted. I think so many people were just so loyal, and not just his team for too long, but even just people that enjoyed the sport or thought, as far as his overcoming of cancer is just amazing. That uh, it's just crazy.
I have a guy in my ward who wrote a book, and one of his major mantras is, where there's anger and blame, there is no accountability and no responsibility. Excuse me. I think that applies in almost any instance where you see somebody being angry and blaming somebody else for something, especially with such vitriol, that it almost automatically somehow in their mind discharges them
mm,
from any accountability or responsibility for their actions. Excuse me. And I think that's the legacy that this whole thing has left me with is
mm.
Lance Armstrong, comma, anger and blame.
It's I was trying to like think, like, how did he come, like how did he justify himself? And I bet just I would love to know who else, because it's easy to say, yeah, I mean obviously Lance Armstrong, ultimately it was him. But who was in the background? Who was his mentor? Who were the people that were like in charge of the team, who justified and convinced him that it was okay? That then made him himself convince himself that it was okay, and just led to these patterns. Like, I wonder how many times did he like literally think to himself like, this is fine. I have to be an example because I overcame cancer and I have to win. These people say it's okay and other people do it anyway. And then he just, yeah, anyway. Um,
Well, I think one of the things that's interesting is the case talks about how everybody was doing it. So he wasn't really cheating. He was gaining the same advantage that everybody else had because everybody else was cheating. Well, the problem with that is that while a lot of other people were getting caught, nobody else was winning Tour de France after Tour de France after Tour de France after Tour de France. So they're small potatoes. So, okay, so they're shooting up or they're doing whatever transfusions or whatever doping that they're doing. They are small time. They're small potatoes. They're almost insignificant when the top dog is a much better target. And I don't think he took any of that into consideration. He thought he was just going to be treated like everybody else. Well, everybody's doping, so he'll get the same slap on the wrist that everybody else got. And the problem was that
right.
everybody else wasn't winning multiples of these very high profile races. I don't think
That's a good
he didn't
point.
consider that.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And he won, what was it, five? Oh no, was it 7?
7.
It was 7, right?
7.
uh,
I mean, I remember you guys were probably all way too young to remember Greg LeMond. He was fantastic, just simply amazing, and he was like the Michael Jordan of his time. And I think that was a target that Lance Armstrong was not going to rest until he could beat it, and it didn't matter what it took. And of course, Greg LeMond, who knows whether he was involved in any doping at all? I kind of doubt that he was, but because I think he won 2 or 3 of them, 2 consecutive ones, 3 total, something like that. But that was almost
wow.
superhuman. So when Lance Armstrong comes along and wins 7,
Right.
either he's the greatest athlete that ever lived, or there's something more to the story.
Well, let's go ahead and go into how that affected everyone else. So who suffered from his cheating? What were the costs? Yeah, his whole team. You can argue that everyone that was involved, or that anyone that had any sort of relation professionally, or yeah, just because of all the people, all the fans that supported him, anyone that supported him financially, the obvious things like careers that were ended and habits that were formed as a result of doing that stuff with Armstrong. Um, and then I also I put this in one of my or in my this is one of my answers was be, it just adds to like, oh, everyone in sports, if they're good or if they're doing something dishonest, or someone in that position, they just always end up doing something corrupt. It's that pessimism or not giving people the benefit of the doubt.
Well, it's sports is not unlike everything else. And where there's money and power, there's corruption. And in this case, it's a fantastic amount of money. I mean, I was kind of shocked to see what the winners, what the purse was for the winners. It's next to nothing. It was in the endorsements that he was making millions and millions and millions of dollars. The actual prize for winning was not even notable, but it's that money that drives the corruption. But in terms of who wins and who loses, I really didn't see anybody that won in this whole thing other than those who were able to profit off of merchandise and that sort of thing. I mean, they probably didn't care one way or the other.
Yeah.
But anybody
Sure.
who was even close to Lance Armstrong, his teammates, his doctors, his support staff, his trainers, his family, anybody at all lost.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about specifically Hamilton and Landis and those who testified. What did you guys think? Were they too loyal to Armstrong or not loyal enough? I said that they were too loyal. It just took too long for them to come out. Like Hamilton only started revealing information about Armstrong like after he was caught. And then there's the argument like if they were actually loyal or they did care, like they would have stood up to those practices and tried to sway Armstrong to go public years ago. But yeah, I just thought that they were too afraid and too afraid of Armstrong, to be honest. The kind of type of person he seemed to be.
Well, I'm a cynic, so I look at it and I say, well, they were loyal to him as motivated by covering their own butt.
Yeah, I'm sure they benefited from it.
Yeah, I mean, they were rolling in dough because of it. Also, it wasn't until they had their own prick of a conscience that said, I've got to come clean, or I'm basically out of the sport anyway. I might as well just come clean and tell people the way it is to avoid prosecution or whatever. But the loyalty was there so long as the status and the payday and the success was there. Once that started to diminish, then the motivation to be loyal also started to diminish.
Right. All right. Oh, I like this question. Think about a situation where you witnessed a leader, formal or informal, make a decision for others that made you feel uncomfortable. What was the situation? How did you feel about it? So I actually worked for a company called Living Scriptures, and why do you laugh, Dan? Well, just really quickly, I loved those growing up, and I actually worked for them for a summer, and I was actually doing very, very well on my team. And it's really interesting. Out of like the 12 teams that were out that summer, our team was like second in the company. We had 14 members. Six of my buddies were in debt. Four of them broke even, and then there was me and two others that made a pretty good amount of money, and then one person that made a really good amount of money, and then our manager who was just. But we were second in the company. That's not even. It has nothing to do, by the way, with this question, but it's just ridiculous. But we found out a month before the summer was out that the DVDs that we were selling were actually not in HD, even though we were supposed to tell, like our regional manager told us to tell our customers that, hey, what's awesome this year is that the Book of Mormon, Bible, and all those videos are in HD, and it's an awesome. Anyway, but we found out that literally like only 2/3 of the Book of Mormon was in HD, and that nothing else was, and it was still this very long process. But I felt so, and there was a couple other small things, but that was like one of the bigger things. But I was so loyal to that company and so like invested and passionate about what I was doing, and then I still made a good amount of money that summer. But that last month, I just crashed and died because I just lost all motivation, and yeah, I felt super betrayed. And I'm sure you guys have all had similar situations where someone you look up to, or you had a leader where they were dishonest or they misled in some way, and that betrayal and just really just disappointment, it was just huge for me, and that just affected my work, honestly. And the rest of the summer, it was just a miserable experience.
Well, let me first explain why I laugh. It wasn't. I don't want you to feel like it was disparaging in any way. The reason I laugh is too many people, especially LDS people, think that could never happen in an LDS company, or that could never happen in a group of LDS people.
100%, yeah. I was fresh off my mission too. I was just.
It's disheartening, but the fact of the matter is it happens all the time. Mm-hmm. And because so many of us, we think, well, goodness, there couldn't possibly be anything that would be inappropriate happen. I work with a bunch of LDS people, and everything's going to be great. And that's why I laugh, because I've spent thousands of dollars on Living Scriptures materials over the years, and I know that they're marketed pretty aggressively.
Uh-huh.
And I was, a typical hard sell is tell them whatever it takes to get the sale. 100%. And I felt like there were instances where I experienced that, so that's why I laugh. I didn't want you to feel like I thought
fine. I knew you were laughing because of either because you had a bad experience yourself with the company, or
yeah.
No, you're fine. But yeah, like it's an awful feeling to have a leader or someone you look up to, whether it's professional or we don't have to, but any sort of situation like that where you look up to someone, and you find out they were dishonest, or just not loyal to values or things that you thought that they were committed to. But worst feeling.
Yeah.
And you guys have any situations where you had a leader or anything like that where you guys were looking up to them and unfortunately
so I think that I can't remember what the name of Poison Fang is. I think it's.
Is that Michael?
Is it Matt? No, it's yeah. I think it's Michael.
He's chatting. I don't know if you guys can see the chat.
Yeah, I see it. You can't talk.
Yeah. So he's on also. I've had probably several instances like that, but it was really hard for me to pin one down. And recently, within the last couple of years, I had a situation where a decision was made that I knew was the wrong decision. It was absolutely dishonest. It was absolutely misrepresenting what was supposed to happen. And I got overridden by somebody above me. And I just felt like it was a really inappropriate thing to do. Turned out that I was right. Turned out that, the whole situation fell apart, and lawsuits ensued, and everything else. But at the time, I made sure that I covered my backside by making sure that everybody knew that I was not on board with what the decision was. And it's sad because, a lot of times somebody in a leadership position makes a decision that's inappropriate inadvertently or unknowingly. They really believe it's the right thing to do. And then sometimes they do it just because they're trying to maybe capitalize on a buck or whatever the case may be. But it's hard for those of us who are under them to look at that and say, you're totally missing the boat, and I sure don't want anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
CYA, that's right.
That's called CIA.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and as a result, like our manager, who is an amazing guy, he quit the company, and everyone found out about it. Like we told people. I don't even know how we found out, because we ourselves didn't like watch every single video and like verify, or we found out, and everyone found out, and like literally like almost like 98% of the reps that were there that summer didn't return. So just atrocious attrition. And
Yeah.
and guess what? I loved those videos growing up. I have such a sour taste in my mouth. I don't know. I don't think I ever want to buy, because there's so many, man, it was just a bad mess. But
Well, they're great for primary lessons.
true. I mean, I would tell that to families, like, hey, your kids, would you rather watch them watch SpongeBob or Nephi? Do you want them to reenact something they watched on the television, a cartoon? I'll bring up any random cartoon. Or how cool would it be if you saw I would say all these things. And yeah, they are great, but man, anyway, let's move on. So, maybe about a situation where you witnessed how followers follow a leader. Yeah, we kind of already talked about that. What basic principles guide our integrity? Are there times where there's gray area, and how do you guys choose correctly? I like this question.
Well, let's go back here to what Michael said here. Being lied is the one thing that people have one of the hardest times overcoming, being lied to. I would agree with that.
I agree.
I would agree completely. I'm not quite as Christ-like as I probably should be. And so when I feel like somebody has ripped me off, I guess is the proper way to put it in a forum like this, or lied to me, or intentionally done something like that, I have a hard time even considering that they exist anymore. I just pretty much put them out of my life. They're done. No second chances. Just move on. And it's probably not the best way to be, obviously, because I'm supposed to be better than that. But I have so little tolerance for somebody lying to me in a situation where, I mean, if it's a meaningless lie, it doesn't help their reputation with me. But if it's an important thing that they're misrepresenting to me, I can't deal with it. So I just kind of push them out of my life.
Oh, I think Cody left.
So,
but I agree, Dan. I think that's the worst feeling, is someone knowing that someone even attempted to take advantage of me, or they don't respect me enough to be upfront. it's a small trigger that I have as well. So yeah.
Well, and Michael says it's not worth destroying your personal integrity and reputation. Absolutely agree. Now, I've also seen, I work in one of the hats that I wear sometimes is accounting, and I deal with a lot of digits when it comes to money. I don't handle much money, but I write a lot of checks and all that kind of thing. But of course, it's not my money. But I really, really, when it comes to answering a question, I really go an extra mile to make sure there's a good paper trail of what I've done, why I've done it, based on what premise, whose instructions. Because there have been times when somebody has contacted me and said that, hey, you know, I'm missing money here, or you didn't disperse enough money, or you didn't disperse as much as you were supposed to, or where's the rest of it, kind of a thing. And that's one of those things that really quickly gets at me, and I want to make sure that their veiled accusation or impression that I've done something wrong or improper is cleared up right away. So I quickly go back to the paper trail and I present it all, and I say, here's everything. And just to, again, CYA. It is too easy to be accused of wrongdoing. You don't even have to do wrong. You just have to always be going that little bit extra further effort to make sure that somebody sees that what you've done is on the up and up and appropriate. Because it's really easy for people nowadays to just blame somebody else or accuse somebody else of something.
Yeah. I don't know if Cody's not here. Okay. Let's see. Well, let's go ahead and I think we have one more question. This kind of goes along. So go along with what we're already talking about. How will you personally measure your life and how you measure success? And that kind of goes along with what you were just saying. I kind of respond to that same way. I hope I want to be dependable and reliable. I hope that someone could trust me and rely on me and know that I won't ever cut corners. That they know that I'll be consistent and true to whatever it is that I'm doing. I just want to maintain my integrity and and be quick to repent and ask for forgiveness when I do fail. I just want kind of way down. Like if I'm accused or if someone is questioning something that I'm, whether it's me, who I am, or what it is I'm producing, I just quickly want to clear everything up and make sure that, hey, if I did mess up, I'm sorry, it's not intentional. It's because of blank, blank, blank. But the thing about Armstrong, he was so consumed with that fake reality, that fake image, that he just continued forward with that lie for so many years to the point that it just destroyed him and just so many people.
Well, it kind of goes back to at least what I experienced as a kid, and I know that my kids experienced, most of us experienced, and that's the old primary lesson about not admitting your mistakes causes you to have to constantly be building the wall for your story. And then before long, you're lying to support lies. And then you're lying to cover up lies. And you're lying to cover up of lies. And in Lance Armstrong's case, he lied so many times and cheated so many times and made it not just a situation that he got caught up in, but it was who he was. He genuinely, everything about what he was doing was rooted in all of this deception and dishonesty. And I think that where he went wrong was clearly making that first mistake. But once he got to the point where everything that came out of his mouth
revolved around it
was a lie, everything that came out of his mouth was in further defense of himself and his reputation and everything else, to the point where it just got just sad. And I think that at one point, even before any of these things were proven, people were just looking at him saying, you know, there's too much smoke here for there to not be any fire. And it just, I don't know. I think that lying became his way of life, became who he was or is, and that's really where the sad thing comes to people who are liars. If you're a liar and you find it easy to lie, you continue to practice your craft. You get better at it, and you become more dependent on it, and you lie about bigger and better things. And before long, you know, I can tell you that I know people, if they were to tell me that today is Thursday, I'd check the calendar first, because I distrust everything they say, everything. I have come to know them as liars. And so there's nothing that can be relied on that they might say or be part of. And unfortunately, I would say that in a number of different arenas, Lance Armstrong will be that way for the rest of his days. Mm-hmm. Everyone will always know him as a vehement liar. And even when he tells the truth, it's going to come under scrutiny.
Yeah. That's a good point, that even if he ever does, and it's so hard breaking or fixing a habit that's been going on for that long. But even when, if and like you said, when he does speak truth about anything, he's just, that reputation is like, you just question, and
Yeah.
that's such an awful consequence that he'll have to deal with the rest of his life.
Can you imagine being on the receiving end of some of that litany of foul language and threats and anger that he was throwing out at these guys, mm-hmm. who had nothing to lose at this point? You know, what's to gain for lying anymore? I've got nothing to gain from lying, so here it is. Here's the story, and he just attacked them with such a vicious tirade that
yeah, Hamilton in that restaurant.
Yeah, it just seems sad to me. But
desperation.
One of the things I was going to mention is that I have seen a lot of dishonesty. I'm kind of an old fart. I've seen a lot of people that have been dishonest. I don't like dishonesty, but I feel like people have the right to be dishonest.
What do you mean by that?
Well, everybody has the right to choose right or wrong. I can't prohibit somebody from being dishonest. But if you're going to be dishonest, don't do it where it involves me, because I don't want anything to do with it. I don't make enough doing what I do to be dishonest. I could easily be dishonest, but I don't make enough to jeopardize my livelihood, my personal integrity. As Michael said, you know, it's not worth losing your personal integrity and reputation. For some people, it is worth it to them, or at least they perceive it to be worth it to them. So I generally look at it and say, hey, look, I don't agree with what you're doing. You know, that's up to you to do it if you insist on doing it, but don't bring me into it. I don't want any part of it.
Well, kind of what you said, that because it just became who he was. Who is he without that? Like, he was just defending who he is as a person at that point. This whole huge image that he'd been creating over so many years just completely destroyed. So he was just desperate to remain who he respected, and what he thought he was. Crazy.
I think that a lot of athletes, and you could say the same thing about actors or high-profile musicians or high-profile professionals in many different business atmospheres, whatever the case may be. I think it's one of the reasons why we're so cautioned about pride and about being focused on ourselves, because that's the gateway. That's the gateway to basically saying, hey, you know what? I need to get more fame. I need to get more money. I need to get more notoriety. I need to be out there more. And so you start doing things in search of more. And I think that that usually ends up tripping people up. They start to lose their moral compass. They start to compromise their integrity. They start to do things that otherwise they would have never done. Um, you know, just because it's not illegal to do it doesn't mean it's right. In Lance Armstrong's case, um, a lot of the things that he was doing were not unlawful. Wasn't like he was going to go to jail for them. They were just against the rules of his profession.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, is it illegal? Do you need to call the cops because he's doping or whatever it is he's doing? Well, probably not. But it was not permitted, and that's, I think that he figured he could justify what he was doing on a number of levels, because he became so hungry for that bigger, better popularity, money, whatever the case may be. And when it comes to this measuring your life and your success, I think that he was measuring his life and his success based on
that,
things that probably are not really centered on eternal circumstances or eternal principles, probably more on worldly ones.
Yeah. Well, to finish off, because I'll finish off with you, Michael. I just agree. It's crazy how powerful the mind is. And like you said, Dan, if we practice that, like they just get in the habit of, and every time they do it, they'll practice that craft, and they get to the point where that becomes who they are, and they believe it to be that reality. Like I know people have lied so much that they literally believe that what they're saying is the truth, and justifies just. So what I want to do to avoid, I just want to make sure that the habits that I am creating, the morals that I am, or the principles that I am using, that that those are consistent, that I continue to develop good habits. And again, this is another case study where I was like, well, what kind of person do I want to be? I would hope, even if it's small, like, because I feel like everyone's made that mistake of lying about something. How often do I want to make that mistake ever again in my life? About what? Am I concerned about what people think about me? To what extent? But just creating those consistent, positive, good habits. Well, there's no other questions. Do you have anything else to add, Dan?
I don't think so. I do like Michael's comment here about how Lance Armstrong got to the point where he started to believe his own lie.
Yeah.
It's interesting how that happens. If you've ever known somebody who's really a habitual liar, they do actually genuinely start to believe their own lies. It's not just a character flaw. I think that there's a mental
I agree. That's what I was saying, that literally it's not even them just like, oh, they're making the mistake, or they're choosing to believe it, like that's what they want to do. No, that because of how many years and just their brain, like, and I know there's studies behind this. I don't have the I can't. I know because I've taken a couple philosophy and reasoning classes, but your brain literally, like, it just becomes, it accepts it and believes it completely, and it's no longer a choice, that you just literally accept that reality. And I know two people that are like that. And it's crazy. It's kind of cool how powerful the mind is. So if we avoid creating, lying, imagine just how amazing it would be if we could just use that power to be super consistent in good things.
Yeah. I think also that this whole idea of, the being acknowledged by our popularity, our notoriety, our money, whatever our level of influence is. I know people who are completely honest. I know them to be pure and honest, and I consider them to be successful. But they also work hard at not getting ahead of themselves,
Mm.
and not getting themselves in a situation where they will have to do something that would go against their own integrity. Because again, once you hit that slippery slope, it's hard to get out of that. So, it comes to my own success, I don't really look for any of that, so that level of success, if you will, just because I think that that's the open door to the compromise of your integrity. You get too successful, and all of a sudden you have to start doing things that you would have never done otherwise. And I don't know. Maybe that's shallow thinking on my part, but it's kind of like
All right, well, cool. Let's go ahead and come to a close then. How many people are in this group, by the way?
I think we have 6.
Okay.
I don't think we've ever had more than 3 or 4 in our meeting.
Yeah, I wasn't here last week, so. Well, cool. All right, well, thank you so much, Dan. Thanks for participating so much.
Thank you for hosting the meeting tonight. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great. All right, well, thank you so much, guys. Have an awesome night. I'll go ahead and post this pretty shortly here.
All right, very good. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, guys.